Hello, this is my review of the Spyderco Police. This is a knife I've been waiting for a long time. This is a kind of like I see it as like a bigger version of the Spyderco Endura with some more refinements. I'll go into that later. But what you get here is a backlocked K390 steel blade on a G10 handle with liners, and it's pretty simple, pretty effective. It's a really good large slicing tool. So it's not particularly, despite being called the police, in my opinion, it's not particularly like a hard use knife. It's just a practical utility knife. It's big. It's capable, but it's probably not that ultra tactical hardcore rescue knife that they may be insinuating with the name. So let's have a closer look at it. It's a Japanese-made Spyderco, and they're usually pretty good on the fit and finish. I've not seen any real problems with this one. It lines up really nicely on the back. Got a really smooth bolt back back spacer there after the mid back lock, which locks and acts really well. Very similar to an Endura. This whole knife is, except in my opinion, it's had a couple of really decent improvements on the Endura. So I'll show you an Endura here now. So it's like FRN, VG10, overall kind of similar size, shape, purpose, even pocket clip. This one has the 4-inch blade rather than the Endura's 3.5-inch, but really this improves in two main areas. First of all, the exposed tang on the Endura, never liked that, it's now gone. So it's less, going to hang up less and attract less lint. And the second is the part between the blade and the handle on the Endura is now a choil, which just makes heaps of sense to me. You're not losing any real, index finger to blade distance. You're just gaining another way to hold the knife, which is really cool. I'll show you some comparisons to some other knives now. So this is the Griptilian, just by Benchmade, the standard sized Griptilian. This is the Hardcore Hardware MILF number 4 folding knife. Big beefy blade. Look how big the pivot is compared. That's the Zero Tolerance 0220. Again, bigger pivot, more overbuilt, maybe more first respondery type knife. And another first respondery type knife is the Contago by Benchmade. Big, beefy, strong. The Lawman again, sort of a bit more compact, but a little bit lighter, a little bit sort of more, I guess, reasonable sized. These are the thicknesses. So you've got from top to bottom the Griptilian, the Lawman, the Police, the Contago, the Hardcore Hardware, which is hugely thick, and then the Zero Tolerance. You can see this is quite a thin, slicey knife compared, even though it is quite long and I guess quite large. So talking about K390, let's get onto this steel. This was kind of the main selling point for me. So K390 is like a tool steel that's a powdered tool steel. It felt to me very similar to using M4 or S90V or something like that. It's got a really decent amount of edge holding, even with the workshop edge that I use, which is more of a polished over micro convex. So the edge holding was certainly decent. I had a preconception which showed me how silly preconceptions are, because it didn't last as long as Maximate like I thought it might. It did 240 cuts in my rope cutting test. There's like a super turbo version of that entire test. So it did well in that test. That's about what you would expect of a good powder metal steel, just nothing too obscene. Then the other thing you need to know about this knife steel is you need to take care of it because it rusts. There it is next to just a standard carbon steel. Most of that rust went away. You probably will notice a slight patina in this video, but yeah, it rusts more than stainless steels, obviously. So with about the same ability as M4 to resist rust. But yeah, the blade is an excellent slicing blade. So this knife actually cuts stuff, which is lost on a lot of sort of knives that would normally be called the police or a first responder themed knife. Most of them just become sort of the choppy or the prying or the ultra durable, ultra thick sort of blades with their huge pivots. This really is just like an oversized Endura that you can do all those things with. It's just, it may not have the insane integrity as some of those thicker chunky knives, but in my opinion it'll outperform them when it comes to actually separating those cells or those fibers or whatnot and actually doing some cutting. So it cut the apple really well. I always try and cut an apple with knives just to see how cleanly it makes those cuts, how squared off they are. And yeah, there's no chunking or chipping or anything like that with this one. Really good, big slicing blade. Absolutely no problem at all. And it's very good for your, if you're going to steady your hands a little bit and do some thin sort of show-off slicing. Does no problems at all with that. it's a really, really good slicer, which is nice. Often people sort of forget that knives are supposed to slice things, and this one slices things quite well, especially for a bigger knife. Not too many huge knives are good slicers, because they usually go thick in the spine and get sort of chunky saber grinds. But this one here, they've kept it very much like an Endura or a Delica, and I think it's the knife's benefit, and it keeps it different from other sort of law enforcement, I guess, themed knives. So no problems at all with the blade performance. I did cut some wood with it and just do some standard sort of like twisting and shaving on some harder stuff just to see how the steel performs, really, just to make sure I didn't get any chips. It's wearing a rather thin edge right now. It's quite thin behind the edge too, so if it was going to chip out, it would have been during like the feathering on this really hard redwood, when you sort of have to like leave the knife and leave the feathers away from the wood surface a bit, and no problems at all with the K390. So I think it is one of those tougher tool steels that has toughness as an attribute just as much as it has edge retention. So there you go. Cardboard, no problems at all, of course. The really cool thing about this steel is that, and this is something that's hard to quantify in a test, and I know that's kind of what I seem to be about, is just getting these numbers for things or getting these comparisons, but in terms of resharpening, this steel has stropped back from pretty dull to, hair shaving sharp, paper slicing sharp again, just on a leather strop, which is really, really cool because it means that even if you do use it a fair bit, you can probably maintain it by stropping rather than having to go to your stones every time. The pocket clip, that's the Delica pocket clip. It's the same one. It's even got the lanyard hole from when there is a lanyard hole in the Delica. And yeah, it's a completely fine pocket clip. It's got a good lip, good ramp. It sticks out of your pocket just a little. This is the one flaw of the knife I don't particularly like. It's the same with the Endura. That fold choil doesn't allow any space for a sharpening choil, so it's hard to get their stone all the way up to that point there. But hey, that's something that you probably aren't going to actually use, that little part there. It's just a matter of probably a cosmetic thing more than anything. But if that's the one real flaw I can find in this knife, I think for $170 you're getting a good, unique steel, you're getting a good, grippy G10, comfortable, neutral handle. I haven't really spoke about the handle too much, it's just good. It's like an Endura handle, but made of G10. And you're getting a really long, slicey blade, which is different and unique for something that's quite a large knife. To restrain themselves from completely overbuilding it, I think it's to Spyderco's credit, and there's actually something different here, rather than just another huge sort of tactical knife. So good on them, and I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I hope you've learned something today. I'll see you all in the next video, guys. Bye now.